Kejimkujik National Park is a magical area. It's a place of peacefulness where nature's allowed to take its course in the best way possible.
Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site is a maritime paradise. But some of the natural wonders that make the park so unique face grave threats. An invasive species is devastating the coastal ecosystems.
Green crabs are actually known as the cockroach of the sea, and they have a scorched earth policy.
The last stone carvings of an ancient culture are eroding.
But as you can see right here, they're fading, and they're fading fast.
Predators stalk the nests of threatened avian species. At Kejimkujik National Park, every day it's a struggle to hold on.
If we allow a species to go extinct, that's just leading to our own demise. We never know the value of that species until it's gone.
I'm 75 years old, and I caught my first brook trout when I was 4 years old. So let's say I've been at it for 71 years.
Reg Baird is one of Kejimkujik's most avid anglers. He's also one of the park's most important brook trout researchers.
I still enjoy it as much as I ever did. And since I've been involved in the research, it's just become a passion with me.
Brook trout are one of several species in Kejimkujik that are carefully monitored by Parks Canada ecologists. Like many of the park's projects, it's given a helping hand by knowledgeable and enthusiastic volunteers.
From the time that I was just a little kid, the waters that make up Kejimkujik National Park were considered the greatest brook trout resource in Nova Scotia.
But early in the 20th century, the waters of southwestern Nova Scotia were not in such pristine condition. The land that makes up the park was once mined for gold and heavily deforested. All that changed in 1974 when Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site was established. Nearly 400 square kilometers of land centered in southwestern Nova Scotia was protected by the Canadian government in order to preserve an example of the Atlantic coastal uplands region. In 1988, 22 square kilometers of Atlantic coastline was added to the park. Since its establishment, the sparkling waters, rocky hills, and ocean beaches contained in the park's boundaries have enjoyed a renaissance.
It's a place where you can see rivers, lakes, forests, glacial remnants in the form of huge granite boulders. I like Keji because you can canoe here and you can camp. And the historical connections with the Mi'kmaq people, knowing that these places where you travel, the canoe routes, the portages, that First Nations people have been traveling for thousands of years. It's a pretty special feeling. You almost feel the spirit here.
Oh, good, Roy. That's a better fish. Good job, Roy. Now we got to weigh, measure, and tag.
There have been no shortage of success stories in Keji's renewal. One of them is the Brook Trout Monitoring Project. Ecologists can assess the health of the freshwater in the park by keeping track of the fish that researchers catch. As part of the program, volunteer fishermen spend many afternoons in the park angling for brook trout.
And last year in the program, there was 1,200 hours devoted of pure volunteer time to this project. We measured and caught over 750 fish, and all that information gets put into our databases and analyzed.
1040, Ray, is the weight, and we're looking at 32.7. We have these tubes, so you measure your fish in the tube, but his head and gills are still underwater, and so you're stressing the fish the least amount as possible. That's our idea. Sure. And then we just back him out. And there he goes.
Through the monitoring program, Parks Canada ecologists have discovered that the brook trout population in Kejimkujik is as robust as ever. It's a strong indication that the freshwater ecosystems in the park are healthy. Another aquatic species is also thriving in Kejimkujik, except its presence is less welcome. The green crab is wreaking havoc in the seaside section of the park. It's considered an invasive species by park ecologists.
Green crabs are actually known as the cockroach of the sea, and they have a scorched earth policy. So as they move through, they're pretty voracious. They'll eat almost anything. They're omnivorous, meaning that they can eat plants or animals. It's exotic. It came here from Europe, and it's having what we think are very detrimental effects on our ecosystem.
Hundreds of thousands of green crabs have settled into the estuaries of the park, outcompeting dozens of native species. Parks Canada biologists are trying to curb the problem.
It's destroying our eelgrass. Without eelgrass, you don't have room for your young fish to grow up. A lot of people think you have your big fish and they grow up all out to sea and stuff like that. Well, if they don't have the eelgrass to protect them from the other fish, we have no small fish. So eventually, if you don't protect the eelgrass, you're not going to have cod, you're not going to have haddock and all this stuff. So eelgrass is very important. This project is to remove the green crab from this area so we can get the eelgrass going again.
To battle the green crab problem, Parks Canada has established a removal program. Over the past few years, park biologists have been laying traps to capture green crabs.
Our job is to get them out of here. You know, we have no quota saying you cut off at 10,000 or whatever. Our quota is we need to get them out of this area, so we'll fish them till we get them down.
The green crab removal project is showing progress. Biologists are finding only a few dozen crabs in their traps compared to a few hundred per trap in years previous.
Well, last year when we started, we had days out here that we had over 5,000 crabs in 10 traps. Since we started this year, our numbers are declining, which is looking good at this point in time. So hopefully our numbers will keep declining.
Last year we took out about 200,000 green crab, and that was just a start, but it was a very successful start in that we were able to protect what was left of the eelgrass.
Day by day, Parks Canada marine biologists are tackling the green crab infestation at Kejimkujik. But with their work limited to the 22 kilometers of coastline located within park boundaries, it's certain to be a perpetual struggle. Unfortunately, it's not the only battle that needs to be fought in the park. While some park biologists fight the green crab invasion, others must confront an entirely different set of problems. Several species that call Kejimkujik National Park home are nearing extinction. If Parks Canada biologists cannot help them hold on, the face of Kejimkujik National Park will be forever altered.
The piping plover is a small shorebird, only a few inches tall. It nests in the dry sand, a little bit away from the water, which is why it's a sensitive bird to human activity on the beaches.
At one time, 30 mating pairs of the piping plover nested on the beaches of Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site. Now, there are only 3 pairs of the shorebird left in the park. Saving the endangered piping plover is perhaps the most urgent issue confronting park biologists today.
Our beaches are closed to the public while they're nesting, so they're protected relatively well, except from natural predators.
The plover is just one of many species in Kejimkujik that is nearing extinction. The boundaries of the park provide a crucial sanctuary for many of the maritime's most threatened creatures.
At Kejimkujik, we have a number of species that are considered rare.
Duncan Smith is a species at risk biologist at Kejimkujik National Park. Duncan and his team monitor populations of rare species that call the park home. As they learn more about the plover, they're realizing that some of the causes of the plover's problems are preventable. Beach use by visitors to the shore has been disturbing their nesting patterns, but so have predators like foxes, crows, and coyotes. The plover needs a helping hand from the ecologists of Kejimkujik Park if it's going to hold on.
Every week we spend about 3 or 4 days, and we go for about 12-kilometer hike from our office down on the beach.
The nesting season of the plover is a fragile period, a time when the species is most threatened by predators. Park staff set up remote cameras to keep a close eye on the birds without disturbing them.
They incubate the eggs for about 21 to 24 days. After they hatch, which can take up to a couple days, then they're just little cotton balls running around. They'll take about 25 to 30 days before they're strong enough to fly away, in which case we consider them fledged, and pretty soon after that they head south.
I think it's important to remember that you can always get down on things when plover numbers start to change or green crab numbers start to hugely increase. But I personally believe saying, hey, these are great opportunities to engage people, to involve people, to show them that within a few years things can massively change. If they can go one way, we can pull them back the other way. It just takes a bit of work and a bit of getting your hands dirty.
Found deep in the park's interior, the iconic Blandings turtle has been a park favorite for decades. The species monitoring program that has been established to help protect this endangered turtle is one of the most popular amongst Kejimkujik's volunteers.
We just left Meadow Beach and we're headed up to the Heber Meadows area of the park. And we're headed out today. We're going to do what's called a visual survey. We're going to look for blandings turtles. The blandings turtles here in Nova Scotia, they're at the northern extent of their range. So what that means is they're as far north as the population tends to go. There's one, Jeffy. Think you can grab her?
Got her.
Nice. Now, we know this one was marked in the early 70s, so we can safely say that this turtle is probably 60 to mid-60s anyway. So it's quite a privilege to have one of these with us today. And in fact, this is one of about 37 females that we know of within the park. So it's pretty rare to see them, as you can well imagine.
Even though ecologists are able to find some of the park's most ancient turtles, they are becoming increasingly concerned as the years go by. Only 5 nesting female Blandings turtles have been recorded in the last decade. Park ecologists suspect that unusually high populations of raccoons and other predators in the park are adversely affecting the turtles' ability to nest. Through a nest monitoring program, park ecologists are doing everything they can to help the species hang on.
Blandings turtles nest in habitat like you see behind me here, but they nest at night after dark. So we have a large group of volunteers, probably over 70 a season, that will patrol the beaches every night looking for these turtles.
When volunteers find a new nest, they take action to protect the eggs.
We put a wooden square with a chicken wire mesh on the top of it over the nest so that predators can't eat the eggs. And those nests are left like that, and the eggs incubate for the summer. And then the volunteer teams are back in September, October, when the eggs start to hatch. And we'll radio tag some of the hatchlings and follow where they go.
Despite their efforts, research is showing that the population of Blandings turtles is experiencing a decline. Of late, they have only been able to find 300 turtles. Park ecologists are certain that numbers of the turtles used to be significantly higher.
When it comes to balancing species at risk, it's just like everything else. Nature, things change. So it's about managing that change and trying to do what we can to help increase the species where we see it not only feasible, but possible.
The importance of wildlife is, the old jigsaw concept that we need all the pieces of the puzzle to understand. And if we allow a specific species to go extinct, that's just leading to our own demise. We work hard to try and recover species at risk, and we do the best we can.
The portage that is just behind me is an ancient portage. It was a route that the Mi'kmaq people used when they were traveling from the inland areas to the coastal regions. They would use this path to get onward and through to the ocean.
Kejimkujik National Park is the only park in the national park system that has also been designated a National Historic Site. This land was once the domain of the Mi'kmaq Nation. The lakes and waters a vital canoe route connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the Bay of Fundy.
It was declared a National Historic Site because of its cultural landscape. And its cultural landscape pertains to thousands of years of Mi'kmaq occupation.
The Mi'kmaq Nation extended all across the Maritimes, but today only a few archaeological artifacts remain. Some of the most intriguing of those artifacts can be found in Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site.
They're very faded, so I gotta find it. And if you find it, oh, I see it. I see it.
On a rocky outcropping on Kejimkujik Lake, petroglyphs etched into slate rock more than 500 years ago detail aspects of Mi'kmaq history.
The ancestors to the Mi'kmaq had sails, but not these types of sails. They had different types of sails. So this here would be European. This here is a European. Now I'm going to show you another one that it depicts the whale hunt. Alrighty. This is the whale. There's his tail. And this here is the canoe over here. And there's two people on the canoe. One here and there's one here.
All throughout Kejimkujik National Park are tiny traces of a distant past, but some of those traces are facing a slow but constant threat.
We're coming to an interesting time with the petroglyphs because the rock that they are carved into is so soft. Over time, with rain and wind erosion, wave action, the stories, the carvings are being deteriorated, eroded. The question is now, do we let them fade away forever, or do we try to intervene with some sort of active management and do something to preserve them?
For now, park administrators have decided to protect the petroglyphs by restricting access to them, but they've chosen to let them erode according to natural forces. An advisory board to the park suggested that a more proactive approach should be taken, but it was decided that any removal project could be damaging. Donna Morris isn't so sure.
Perhaps we have to revisit that advisory board and say, what can be done? What can we do to save them? Because there are a lot of them right now that have already disappeared.
If the current plan is followed, the ancient petroglyphs will eventually fade from the rock surfaces of the park. But with a new generation of guardians working hard to protect the health of the land, Kejimkujik National Park and National Historic Site will be here for young and old to visit for decades to come.
What we can do is we can positively impact people to change how they think, what their conceptions are, and really change things for the environment, and really, at the end of the day, hopefully save some of these species that we're talking about. When you work with people and they start to see that you have a passion for what you're doing, it starts to rub off, and you can really change attitudes, behaviors. And plus, if you can get outside on days like this, call it work, what's not to like?
Wood Buffalo National Park is the largest national park in Canada. It's the second biggest national park in the world. The park's wide open spaces have fostered the resurgence of the largest wood bison herd in North America.
Wood bison numbered probably over 100,000 throughout their range in North America, and they were decimated, and what we're seeing out here is the descendants of those animals.
The park also shelters the world's last wild migratory flock of whooping cranes.
They make their 4,000-kilometer migration up from Aransas, Texas, all the way to wood buffalo.
Largest park in Canada, largest free-ranging bison, and largest population of remaining whooping cranes. But I'd also argue that it's probably the largest wildfires that occur in North America. The fires in this park are frankly unmatched in scale.
Wood Buffalo National Park's immense size might lead one to believe it cannot be affected by external threats. But threats and challenges do exist.
Everybody knows the problem is coming from the industry. That's not a wild guess. Everybody knows there's something wrong, and we just got to prove it.
Confronting threats and powerful natural forces from inside and out, park management at Wood Buffalo faces some serious challenges.
Easiest to push the left side? Okay. If you drop us here, we'll walk our way up the left side, and we'll hide there and get them as they're coming by. Okay.
Today is a big day in Wood Buffalo National Park.
So we'll just set up right here. We'll wait here. Mike will push them by in the helicopter, and if all goes well, they'll come by at good speed and just out in front of us.
Bison ecologists take position in a meadow near the Peace River to monitor a wood bison herd in the park. In North America, plains bison were hunted to near extinction at the beginning of the 20th century. Because of the dire situation, Wood Buffalo National Park was created in 1922 to protect the last remaining wood bison herd in North America. The park boundaries straddle Alberta's northern border with the Northwest Territories. The park covers almost 45,000 square kilometers of land, protecting an expanse of land the size of Switzerland. The creation of the park has been a monumental victory. Keeping track of the bison herds is a top priority job here.
Every 2 years in Wood Buffalo, we do what's called a bison segregation count, and that typically involves hiring a fixed-wing aircraft to drive or to fly crew over the park looking for herds of bison. When we're in a large meadowed area, we actually can get down on the ground and classify the herds.
There's just a few over here that I haven't seen yet.
Today, ecologists will do what they call a biannual bison segregation count, identifying the age and gender of the bison based on horn and skull and other features. They aim to find out the ratio of calves to cows, an indicator of the health of the population.
B3, 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 B3.
This is when the job gets risky.
Radio Mike can tell them I've got this main group. There's just a few at the very end that I haven't seen.
I've got the main group. There's just a few at the very end we can't see.
B3, B3, B4, B3. Wow, a lot of bulls here. Okay, that's it.
Nearly trampled by stampeding bison, researchers decide that it's time to evacuate the meadow.
Terry, I counted about 38 animals in that group. It was the largest I've ever seen group of bulls. Some of them came through the trees on the other side of it, so it puts us in between the animals in the meadow, and we've got animals on the other side of us as well. So that woke us up.
When bison ecologists spot a second herd from the air, they decide to try to take account. But there's another problem.
So with this first herd, we took a look at the herd in the area and chose a spot that we thought we could move the herd to without having them have to move too far. But once we got off the ground and had a better look at where we are and where the bison are, we noticed that there was a wolf sort of came in between us and the bison.
That's why we don't see calves. They've got them in the middle. Where is that other wolf? I just saw his ears a minute ago. There it is. They're both lying down there in roughly the same spot. Okay, so we've got at least two, which means there's likely to be more.
A second attempt to count a wood bison herd in the park is aborted. Still, the research team is comfortable with what they've observed today.
The last time we did a population survey in the park was in 2009. And at that time, our population estimate was about 5,000 animals. So I expect that hasn't changed a whole lot.
Conducting the segregation count is a more encouraging job than it used to be. 90 years of protection has allowed the emergence of the largest free-roaming wood bison herd on the planet. But the creation of Wood Buffalo National Park has had other unanticipated results. In 1954, the last flock of whooping cranes was discovered nesting in the farthest northern reaches of the park. In the springtime, they make a 4,000-kilometer annual migration from Texas to the park to nest, lay eggs, and raise their young.
You can be up to your waist in mud if you step into this shallow water. The water might be this deep, but you'll step into it and you'll be up to your waist in black, stinky mud. Bison and larger animals like humans or wolves could never get into an area where the whooping crane are nesting because they do pick this muddy, marshy area where they build their nest.
Tending to the habitat that fosters species like the wood bison and the whooping crane is an everyday challenge for Parks Canada management. But when the dry season comes, their management challenges only multiply.
Our wildfires are huge in this park. Right now as we speak, we have a great example of that where there's a fire, we call it the Richardson Complex Fire. This fire is larger than the province of PEI. It moved 80 kilometers in one day.
Well, I know the country. You see all these lakes, I know where they are, and then all I have to do is take a ruler and the map itself tells you the mile it's on the, you break it down.
Perched high above Wood Buffalo National Park, Malcolm Stewart monitors the vast landscape for forest fires. He works in one of the last remaining fire towers in the Northwest, This is his 20th season in the tower. Newer fire management detection technologies have nearly made conventional fire towers obsolete. But in Wood Buffalo National Park, they still have their uses.
That one over there, Fire 8, I spotted that, and that's 64 miles.
Miles from Malcolm's tower, Parks Canada fire management crews have been battling a forest fire called Fire 8 for the last 2 weeks. It follows right on the heels of a fire called the Richardson Fire, the largest wildfire backwoods firefighters have ever had to confront in Alberta.
Bob's away. Nice, 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 nice.
I'll be going out, right turn.
Okay, we're just right side down low. We're headed your way.
Go behind you, know.
Well, in Wood Buffalo National Park, it's obviously all boreal forest, and there's a lot of grassland in the delta, and we understand that fire's got a very important role because some of those ecosystems and species are fire dependent.
It looks like just above our head, wind are picking up a bit, so the pilot can feel it. So that means maybe potential for stronger winds on the ground.
We just have to be realistic, and it's mop up.
Yep.
Deciding which fires to monitor and which ones to extinguish is a team effort. The Parks Fire Management Team gather input from Incident Command and the Parks Canada National Fire Management community and make the call.
Fires can get really big in the national parks, and depending on a certain time of the year, we may decide to let those fires grow as much as they would like without having suppression done on it.
Winds are more of northwest or
In this case, the decision is clear. Fire number 8 needs to be extinguished. It threatens Highway number 5, the main artery through the park and a lifeline for residents of the town of Fort Smith.
There's still some fire there, but
today, the firefighters of Wood Buffalo National Park work in tandem with Incident Command team members and fire crews dropped in from Puckasaw and Jasper National Parks.
We need to extinguish those fires for protection of values, and one of them was the Highway number 5, and we sent planes, we call tankers, to do some water drops to contain the spread of the fire as much as possible. And then the following day, we send crews and helicopters and start working the fire and minimize the chance of closing the highway, which is an important escape route for the community of Fort Smith.
Don't forget they're customized.
While aerial crews fight the fire from the sky, some of the most grueling work is done on the ground. With the worst of the wildfire extinguished, ground crews are in a mop-up stage.
We're keeping an eye out for hot spots. So you're looking for puffs of smoke swirling up, and also smell is a big thing. So there's a distinct smell between just a burn and a hot spot. So you're always smelling, and sometimes you have to stop and just take a moment to kind of smell and look around.
It takes Wood Buffalo fire crews several days to repel fire number 8 from Highway number 5. It's a harrowing battle, but one that they ultimately win. But with conditions in the park unusually dry this season, a new fire could start again at a moment's notice.
Most of our ignitions are lightning strikes. But as you can see today, this is the kind of typical weather we can have in the summer, and these usually bring ignitions and lightning strikes and keep us on our toes.
Unfortunately, managing some of the world's largest wildfires is only one of this park's complex management challenges.
Sometimes you'll see things
a little bit like this. It's a hyperplasia, it's called. It's an extra additional growth of the tissue. We've looked at close to, I guess, 500 fish so far, and we've never seen one like this before.
Rising concerns about water quality in the park's rivers and lakes has prompted local ecologists to begin a baseline study.
I spend about a week, a month in my work here in the Delta. It's a fantastic place to go out in, on the channels, on the lakes, in the wetlands. Every day it's changing, it's growing, and you see different wildlife, different bird life. It's a pretty exciting place to be.
In Wood Buffalo National Park, the Peace, Athabasca, and Birch Rivers come together in the southeastern part of the park to form one of the largest inland freshwater deltas in the world.
There's 600,000 kilometers of watershed in northern British Columbia, northern Alberta, and northern Saskatchewan that all meet here in the Peace Athabasca Delta. So the huge volumes of water flowing down some of the largest rivers in Canada, certainly the largest rivers in Western Canada, meet right here.
The rivers and tributaries of the Mackenzie Basin watershed carve out entirely unique ecological habitats within the landscape, ones that allow wildlife like the wood buffalo, the whooping crane, and a whole host of other creatures to thrive.
A large part of the park is made up of the Peace Athabasca Delta. So that's where the Peace and Athabasca rivers come together in this tabletop land. And basically, imagine pouring water out over your kitchen table and trying to figure out where it's going to go. It just spills out over the land and creates very shallow, very warm waters, full of nutrients from the river. Lots of sunlight here in the summertime. We have over 20 hours of daylight. So it's just growing all summer long. So you can almost feel it growing some days. From the air, you see these most amazing patterns of vegetation, from sedge meadows to willows to poplar stands and then spruce stands. So just very subtle changes in elevation, and you're going to get completely different types of plant life.
The meadows and bogs that are part of the Peace Athabasca Delta compose one of the most unique landscapes on the planet. But this great northern delta faces a potentially growing threat from industrial activities.
Northern development is on the rise. We have Canada's oil sands development on its southeastern boundary of the park. We have major hydroelectric developments on the Peace River, all of which cumulatively provide stressors and potential impacts to the park, its natural ecosystems and heritage.
For Aboriginal fishermen that fish on the rivers of Wood Buffalo National Park, the threat is immediate.
As a kid, I used to spend a lot of time here, and I used to go out into the middle of the river. We used to get our drinking water from there. And Number one, that's the biggest thing that I notice is I wouldn't even drink the water now.
Today, when a Cree fisherman pulls up his nets on a tributary of the Athabasca River, he pulls in a reasonable catch. But lately, he is noticing that some of the fish he catches exhibit worrisome features.
We need gold eyes for the fish study. Okay, all right. My uncle catches fish like every day and stuff, and we talk a lot. There is something wrong with the water system and the fish because of how deformed the fish are. So we're actually just trying to get data and proof of that.
Local Aboriginal groups and communities working with the support of Parks Canada, the Government of the Northwest Territories, other levels of government and NGOs have established a monitoring partnership to study the aquatic health of the Peace Athabasca Delta in the park. Several university researchers have also joined the efforts.
Initially, we were just going to focus on the Athabasca, but we're hearing from people down on the Slave River that they're starting to see similar things to this occurring down there. So, sure.
Paul Jones is an environmental scientist and professor from the University of Saskatchewan. Research is in preliminary stages, but when the project is complete, ecologists hope to have established a baseline for comparison and have a clearer picture of the water quality in the park.
We've looked at close to, I guess, 500 fish so far, and we've never seen one like this before.
Water seems to be the boss of everything. It grows the plants, and the animals eat the plants, and the Aboriginal groups around here eat the animals, and you know, it's part of the food chain kind of thing. And if you don't have, one elder said, if you don't have a healthy water, you don't have a healthy food chain.
We are really marrying traditional knowledge, which is a result of hundreds and thousands of years of knowledge handed down, and marrying that with Western science to come up with a much better picture of the status of the Peace Athabasca Delta.
In 1922, the creation of Wood Buffalo National Park saved the wood bison from extinction. The park has supported the resurgence of many other species like the peregrine falcon and the whooping crane. But as park managers look towards the future, they know more challenges are on the horizon.
It's a challenge, but it's a wonderful opportunity to really manage this place for Canadians and their children years to come.